What up? What up? What up? I am not doing my job. I am not doing my job very well today.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
Oh my gosh. There we go.
You are struggling.
Hey man, you know, trying to be the producer and one of the people talking, and you know,
I wish everyone could see the setup back we have going on here. We got like 3 monitors.
It's a lot going on
monitors.
Here. A whole lot going on here. Chris Disc, what's up, my friend? Well, you know, it is what it is.
All good.
Oh, Gabriel.
What's going on, brother?
What's up, brother?
What's up, Gabe?
Good to see Gabriel.
What's up, Chris
and
Disc?
We had a, I don't know who this is. What's up, Dave? High five to you, my friend. Well, right back at you. I'm not sure who that is, but high five to you as well.
I'm checking it in. I'm looking.
All right, cool. Cool.
You got a cool show lined up tonight.
We do. Yeah. What's
Kevin Porter?
Kevin Porter. Oh, Kevin Porter. Oh, now it makes sense why. Yeah. What's up, Kevin? Good to hear from you, buddy. And tell your son I apologize for Monday nights kind of taking a hiatus for a couple weeks, but we're back up and running next week. The Wild Man. That's right. Yes. Tell Braden we are back up and running on Monday nights starting next week. So we took a little 2-week hiatus, back at it again for the first time. All right, fellas, what's going on? Nick, you first. What's up?
Man, just high on life right now. Life's pretty good. Blessed to be here.
Yeah, too blessed to be stressed.
Too blessed to be stressed, for sure.
I love it when you say that, man. I really do.
Yeah,
I really do.
For sure.
And I got, good vibes only. So that's where I'm at today.
We are the high vibrational crew over here.
Yes, the vibrations are high and abundant.
Yes.
Frank, I'm a little disappointed. We talked last night, actually earlier today, I guess I would say, about the fact that you were going to wear a certain shirt today, and you did not wear that. But I would still like to give the floor to you to be able to brag and boast about what happened last night. So the floor is yours.
That's right. Big polar bear Pete Alonso hitting 74 home runs to set a record in the home run derby, 35 in the first round, multiple 500-foot home runs. Man, it was a blast. And I am sporting the Mets hat, but I don't have the polar bear shirt on. I do have one. But yeah, no, it was a blast, man. Felt great watching the man go back to back.
I will tell you, did you watch the home run derby?
I did not.
This has nothing to do with weddings, of course. Doug Yost, how are you, man? Good to see you, friend. This obviously has nothing to do with the wedding industry, but I will tell you, watching that guy and the level of comfortability that he had, and we're talking about, of course, the polar bear, just having the level of comfortability that he had at the plate, not frazzled whatsoever. Even when there was even a part where, remember, there was a one of the folks out there shagging balls, which
one of the kids.
I'm just gonna be honest, like this is probably gonna be a dick move, but in all honesty, she didn't look like she probably should have been out there shagging balls in the first place. But they had to walk her off. I think she twisted her ankle or maybe broke a toenail or something. But for some reason, they had to carry her off the field, so it paused everything, right? And he was just up there bobbing his head to the music, having a good time, and then at the end, and you and I were talking about this earlier, at the end, so he's down by 5 runs, right? He's down by 5 home runs. He's got 1 minute to hit
5?
Well, 6 to win,
6.
obviously.
Okay.
6 to win, obviously. And not for nothing, this guy, 6 pitches in a row, 6 home runs in a row.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Ridiculous, man.
Yeah, I also like, I was reading some interviews today where he talked about, and this goes to the DJ side of things a little bit, but they asked him about his playlist because I guess each player got to pick the playlist of music.
Yeah.
And he said that he feels like an honorary New Yorker now. So that's why he put Nas and The Roots and Biggie, and I can't remember, he mentioned a couple others. But yeah, he mentioned a few different artists specifically. Yeah, there you go. That he put in his playlist because he felt like, I'm a New Yorker now. So I really
wish that TV would have allowed us to hear that better, because you couldn't really hear what they were playing. I mean, you could see him bobbing his head to the music, but you couldn't really hear what was being played. So, anyways, no, I just thought that was I thought it was, you and I were talking about this earlier. The home run, and you said it, so I don't want to take credit for it, but the home run derby is probably the most exciting, like, all-star of any sports. Like, it's more exciting really than we were saying, more than the dunk contest. It's just I don't know, there's just something electric about it.
Yeah, there was a period of time, I hate to make this too sporty for a second,
okay,
but but there was a period of time when the dunk contest was just so popular, and like Jordan and Vince and all the best players in the NBA, Kobe and Dominique and Dr. J, all the best players in the NBA wanted to be in it. And now it's like lost that luster. And some of those dunks just don't even seem like they're cool, but it's just something different about like Vince doing the 360 windmill when nobody had seen it. Now you've got like all these little quirky jump over a car or blow out the candle on a
Kia's car.
But let's be honest, like the difference between a home run derby and a dunk contest is, with the home run now I'm going to probably get myself in trouble here, but with a home run derby, you really only have one goal, which is to hit the ball out of the park. Okay. And as long as you keep doing that, then it doesn't matter if the ball travels, depending on obviously the measurements of the park. But if a home run is 384 feet or 512 feet, both of those are home runs regardless. And you've got the commentators like, oh my God, it was 500 feet. But at the end of the day, they were both home runs. Whereas in the dunk contest, it's more about creativity. And it's just been going on for so long. It's like, how much more creative can you really be at this point? Right. Like you said, it's become so gimmicky now. And these guys of the past that did all of these tremendous dunks that were just ridiculous. I'm waiting for somebody to do like a front flip and dunk it. That's going to be out of control. When somebody figures out how to do that or a back flip, I'll take that too. But I think a front flip would probably serve better quicker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the physics on doing a backflip and dunking down in front of you as you spin back, man, you're opening up. This should be watched by NBA players all around so they can start figuring out how to do it.
Well, and it can be a reverse dunk. Like if you want to do a backflip and then reverse dunk it, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So, all right. Well, we totally hijacked a show about wedding business and talking about sports, but that's okay. Chris Diss said, so did Saturday UFC fight with the twist. Yeah, that was something else.
That was pretty gnarly. I think that was like a broken.
Yeah,
like, that was surgery.
That was done with. Yeah. I got to agree with the guys who said that Conor McGregor has probably seen his best days.
Yeah,
I love the guy's swag early on when he was just, he was kind of like the bad guy and just kind of like, said anything or whatever.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that happened this last weekend was way too much. I mean, there's one thing of being a bad guy and being swaggy and kind of playing a role. There's another thing when it's like, people's family members and stuff like that. So
it sounds like some not good stuff went down.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I wish I followed sports more, but I really don't.
Well, you do like baseball, don't you?
A little bit. I followed a little bit, not too much.
What do you follow?
Honestly, not.
I never knew. I never really knew this.
Honestly, like I guess I follow NFL.
There you go.
A little bit.
There you go.
But not too much.
All
I
right.
mean, yeah. I don't know.
Well, we could almost turn this thing into a sports podcast at some point, because I almost feel like we have our viewership is sticking with us and growing as we're talking about sports.
Yeah, what is this going on
So
here?
maybe we should maybe we should start talking about sports. Big Earn, what's up, buddy?
What's up?
Thanks for joining us, man. All right, let's get down to the reason why we're here in the first place. All right.
Sounds good.
Anybody got anything else? Anything exciting coming up soon that you want to talk about? Plug?
I mean, we've got some really cool stuff coming up, but I think we're going to keep that under the radar. For
Yeah, we
longer.
are. We are just a hair longer.
Just a teen longer.
Hang in there. If you like what you see on this podcast and you think we're pretty cool dudes and you like maybe wanting to hang out with us, stick around because we got some things coming up.
It's exciting.
That's the best.
Was that a teaser? Was that a cliffhanger?
It's a teaser.
Yeah.
Yes. It's not a spoiler though. It's not. I'm not pulling a what is it, Paul? I'm not pulling a Paul Heyman spoiler. It's simply a teaser.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about our show tonight. Let's talk about our guest tonight. So our show tonight, using networking and efficiency to build a solid and fun business. And our guest tonight is Adriel. And before we bring her on, I am going to read her bio. Adriel is the owner of Sutlan Co, a wedding planning company with offices in Nashville and Savannah. She is also the founder of planwell.com, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on, a digital platform where wedding professionals can connect to work more efficiently and book more events. I love that. She's originally from Austin, Texas. She has moved all over the South and has worked in the event industry at many capacities, from being a server to a bartender to venue coordinator and now a full-time wedding planner. She believes strongly in doing all she can to elevate the industry and empower vendors in all vendor categories. Almost did that perfectly. And I love that last line. So, Frank, Gabriel said, I don't know about Frank, but you two are cool. Thanks, Gabriel. I appreciate that. So I love this last line. She believes strongly in doing all she can to elevate the industry and empower vendors in all vendor categories. I love that because I think that's kind of the premise of this show. And so I love that. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest on. Adriel, how are you?
Thanks for being on.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
It's going. Thank you for having me.
Did you enjoy our what was it?
Dialogue.
Almost 12-minute sports dialogue before we got started here?
You know what? I did. I played basketball, so I was following it. I know nothing about baseball, so I was a little lost there, but I took some good things away from it. But UFC, I understand. And I'm not a Conor McGregor fan because I 100% agree with you. I think he's gone too far. So
yeah,
that's my sports spiel.
Well, he kind of now. This is secondhand, so Adriel, you might know this better than me. But what I heard or what I interpreted was that he kind of like said things about the guy's wife and all of that stuff.
Ooh.
Wasn't it after the match when he was kind of on the ground and it was over with and kind of a deal? Yeah, kind of like your wife's in my DMs kind of a thing and all of this stuff. Yeah, a bit get out of control.
The guy's wife like went over to him while he's laying there with a broken leg and like flipped him off too.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, rightfully so.
Oh my.
Yeah, I mean, I love competition, but I think I agree with you, David. Like there's a point where it's not competition anymore. Now it's just vicious, not entertaining.
Well, just bitterness,
Yeah.
Competition is healthy. Healthy competition is good. It propels you and it motivates you and inspires you to be the best version of yourself you can be.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So having healthy competition is great. But like you said, when it becomes dirty and underhanded, it's gone too far at that point.
Sounds terrible.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's gone.
I'm
so
learning baseball though.
Yeah, learning about baseball. The
Yeah,
All-Star
this
game's
is-
on tonight, so that would be a good thing to catch after the show.
Yeah.
We are Frank and I really thought this guy was more into baseball than he has admitted to not being, which is okay. I love that. But there is no competition in doing good. Interesting. That's interesting.
Our pithy answer of the evening.
Have to ponder over that one. I don't know if this is this still Kevin Porter? I can't tell. Kevin, give StreamYard permission to show your name if you don't mind, and that way we will know that it's you. Or if you just go to this website right here, StreamYard.com/Facebook, give them permission to show your name and or likeness. And if it's not Kevin Porter, then still do the same thing, because we want to know who you are. Because on our end, it just shows Facebook user unless you do this. So those of you that are watching on Facebook with us, that's why. All right, so here we go. And it is, yep, he's saying yes, it is. So it's still Kevin. All right, good stuff. Okay, let's dive right into this thing. Adriel, first thing out of your mouth when we were talking and in exchanging emails together was business should be fun. And that's why we got into this industry. And I agree with that. Why do you feel that way? I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, my answer would have been different before you had that intro about baseball, but so much of what you said actually ties into exactly my thoughts on why we're in this industry. And it's when you're talking about the baseball player and the home run derby and him going out and nodding his head and stuff, like that's what it's all about, right? That's why we do this. This is why we're not punching into a 9-to-5 every day, most of us. That's why we, grind really hard some days to make this work, is for it to be fun and for us to get to be, making our own schedules and things like that. And for our clients, especially in weddings, that their weddings are their home run derby. And so when we show up bobbing our head to the music and having a good time, I mean, that's what builds for us a fun business and a fun day for them. So that's what's super important.
Yeah.
I love that. I think I should rename my company. Home Run Derby.
Home Run Derby Entertainment Group.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who wants to go to, a wedding like an event and not have fun? And I think that a lot of that gets lost when you get in the grind of the business side of things. And our clients don't always get to see the business, or they don't get to see the business side, right? The marketing, the Instagram day. We were talking about reels. I mean, sure, that's exhausting, but when you're not having fun, people pick up on that vibe, right? It's those good vibes only. People pick those vibrations up, and you can't bring that into a wedding day and run a successful business.
Yeah, I don't think you can't fool people into thinking you're having fun. No. At least not in the long term. You know what I mean? Like, you might get away with it for a little while, but in the long term, if you're not really enjoying what you're doing, you're not going to be able to fool anybody. You had a thought earlier.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of the home run derby, we talk about, people talk about the flow state a lot, when you enter a flow state, and it's like almost like everything is seamless and it becomes very difficult. Work becomes really easy. You lose concepts of time. And I think, honestly, Polar Bear, whatever, I don't know who it is, but it sounds like he was in a flow state.
Yes.
In that time, it really sounds like just when you're just in the zone, just vibing, and everything happens so seamlessly and easy.
Yeah.
And when you can get to that point, I know you've talked about it, when you're DJing, when I'm in video, at an event, when you can enter that kind of flow state, I think that's when things really get fun in business, for sure.
So Pete Alonso is his name.
Pete Alonso.
Yeah. And to your point, even the Frank, you probably could comment on this too. Even the commentators, the guys that were talking during the Derby, they continued to keep like acknowledging and addressing how comfortable he looked and how like dialed in and zoned in he was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it goes exactly to what everyone's saying right now. When you love something and it's where you're supposed to be, then like your enjoyment and your comfortability in that moment is just so clear. And I think that's what causes, especially in this industry, in the wedding industry, that's what creates sustainability long term, right? If you're having fun, then those tough Saturday nights at that wedding that didn't go the way that you wanted it to for whatever reason, sometimes not in your control, like you're willing to wake up on Sunday and go to that next wedding that you have to do and love it and be just as energized as you were going into the Saturday that just maybe didn't work out.
Yeah, I agree with that. And here's the thing, like, people buy us, right? In the wedding industry, they buy us. Like, they're buying you and your personality in most cases, right? Like, sure, they're buying great video or great photos, but they're also buying who you are. As a planner, I never have clients book somebody that they haven't had a chance to talk to, because that chemistry and connection is really important. And if, like we said, if people aren't picking up that fun vibe, or they don't feel that you're pumped to be there on their most important day, and in reality, that's a huge honor that they would pick you at one DJ out of a sea of DJs. To be the one person who controls, I mean, let's be real, the DJ is the one who controls whether that party is fun or not fun. And you guys don't get to see weddings that don't have DJs, but I can tell you it's not even close to the same experience. Yeah. And so for them to trust you or to trust me to be that one person, it's just a huge honor, and they should feel that fun and those good vibes from you the whole time, I think.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point. And especially, you know, coming from the video side of things, you know, you're going to spend upwards 8+ hours with this person. You know, you really want to make sure that you're like the energy is good and that you connect with them. And on the planning side of things too, you know, you're spending even more time with them, planning the wedding and stuff like that. You know, so it's definitely important to connect to that. And, you know, I've had people tell me like, that's the reason, like the way you responded to my email is the reason we booked you. I'm like, that's crazy. But no, that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, and I think to Adriel's point, and I think it's something that we have to be sure we don't overlook, because you have to go into your job being confident about what you're doing and about what you're going to be providing the customer. But in the same breath, there has to be that level of appreciation. There has to be that level, like you said, of, you know, they could have picked anybody, but they chose to pick me or pick, you know, whomever. And there has to be a level of humility and appreciation there.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's easy to get caught in that hamster wheel, right? But the other side of that is like, and really there's two sides, I guess, that side of the client side. And the other side is like us as people, like our lives are short, you know, and to me, I want to wake up every day and have a good time and work with cool people and build great relationships and, you know, leave these people with these amazing days that not just they talk about, but the 150 people that were also in the room. And I want to talk about it too, years down the road. And if I'm having fun, I mean, that's just better for my life in general, clients aside. So.
Yeah, I think when you can do like meaningful work and deep, meaningful work on a regular basis, I think your overall life fulfillment is going to be a lot higher. And again, we talk about vibrations, you know, jokingly in the show, but I honestly think that when you're doing deep, meaningful work that is connecting you with people, I think that is honestly like some of the best high vibration stuff that you can do. Trying not to get all woo-woo on this show.
No, I like woo-woo. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, I like to tell some of the girls that work for me and even my family and friends, like one of my favorite influencers on Instagram always says, if you're not excited, you're not invited. And that's really like, that's how it is. Like, if you're not excited, you're not invited. And we're just going to keep it high vibe and good times.
Might have to steal that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
For sure. At least borrow it. I mean, you don't have to steal it, but at least borrow it. That's hot.
Yeah.
So Adriel, what are some of the things that you maybe have experienced or things that maybe you've seen others experience that interfere with that fun and maybe pitfalls that can either be avoided or just, you know, pitfalls that maybe you've experienced in your career, if any?
Yeah, you know, I think it can be monotonous, the back end of things, right? And every vendor, every wedding professional has a little bit different systems, but at least from a wedding planner perspective, you know, I think are like that meme where it's like what my parents think I do, what my friends think I do, what I really do. And the reality is like everybody thinks that a wedding planner would be like J-Lo and just everything's beautiful and all I do is like run through flowers all day and eat good cake. But the reality is the fun things. Well, I shouldn't say the fun things. The wedding day, like the real high energy, exciting day is 10%, right? If that. It's a handful of weekends out of the year, maybe 15 for us. And so it's like the other, however many days of the year, 340 something, we're at a computer, you know, answering emails. And that's, to me, you know, I know we'll talk about this later, but that's why I created the website. That's why, you know, it's important to me that, you know, I'm helping other vendors find ways to work efficiently, because I know that the downfall is the time on your computer. It's soul sucking some days, really. I mean, to sit in front of a screen and realize you haven't taken a lunch break and it's 8-9 hours in is tough.
Yeah.
Well, and then even it's got to be, and Frank, you can probably talk on this a little bit. It's probably even got to be almost double tough if you have a day job or a full-time job, and then you're also a wedding professional in the midst of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I literally have multiple computers up constantly on my desk, so that way when one of my couples, either current or prospective, reach out to me, then I can respond timely, as well as like on my day job the rest of the time, and it's challenging to switch gears, and it's challenging to stay energized during that Monday through Friday stretch of time. I've been lucky that I've kind of put some expectations out there with my couples, just to kind of let them know that that's, this is my situation. So if I don't get back right away, like, just be patient. It won't be long, but it might not be instant. And they're all, very flexible with that. Also, I've been proactive with my communication lately through my CRM. So I'm trying to touch base. I have scheduled emails going out to touch base more regularly. So that way they are more accepting of when they do reach out to me, that it's not instant, because they feel that I'm also regularly reaching out to them. So those were some techniques that I've used just to kind of bridge that gap a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's challenging. And sometimes, the email is short with everyone when the day job is challenging. And then I find myself like rereading my response to my clients, my couples, because I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm short over here because I'm having a bad day, but I can't be short over here too, So yeah, it can definitely be challenging, but I think, when I love what I do on both sides. So it makes it easier to like let it roll off my back and then wake back up the next day and keep it going.
For sure. So one of the things in business that, we talk about business being fun. We talk about really like loving business. Sometimes some things that are tough for people who are maybe more introverted would be the networking side of things, right? Like getting out there, putting yourself out there. I know in the beginning for me, it was really tough to get out to events and like try to like say like who's this new guy that keeps coming to all of our association meetings and stuff like that. So I know that can be tough. So maybe we could talk a little bit about, networking. I know it's valuable and it's been a cornerstone to my own business, but maybe we could talk a little bit about how we can leverage networking in our own businesses for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's the thing, we were talking a little bit beforehand before we went live about, I actually find that there's a lot of wedding professionals that are by nature introverts, enjoy a crowd of 200, go home and would just rather be at home with their family, or, David, I told you, like, the thought of a 6-person dinner makes me cringe, but I can stand in a 250 person room of strangers and like get the party going,
right.
when people get on the dance floor. And so, the networking piece can be really tricky, but I think when people think networking, they automatically default to the mixers, where we're like in a venue and drinks are provided and you've got to walk around and pass out business cards. And one thing that came out of COVID that I really appreciate is we found different ways to network, and we realized maybe we don't always have to stand in the room, because the reality is we go to these networking events and it's the same 20 people most of the time, right? The same core group. And then we get a couple new people and they're like fresh blood, and people just latch on and, want to get their card and want to pass out their card.
Yeah.
It can be very intimidating. And I just started in a new city, which that was a whole new thing, moving a company to a new city where I had an established company, but I didn't have an established reputation. And that was tricky in the middle of COVID to try to network when there weren't really in-person opportunities.
That's really tough.
What were some of the key ones that, beyond the actual networking deal, what were some of the key ones that you found really helpful?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I believe that, I know to be true, that if you aren't staying in the forefront and relevant in this industry, your business is dying. People will forget about you the minute you stop talking about your company, or you stop, tagging in photos and being relevant. It's not enough to post on Instagram every few months. So when I moved to the new city, the first thing I did was start reaching out to venues. You know, on my side, it's like, of course it seems tedious when you're introducing yourself and you're like, they're not, I'm not asking to be on the preferred list. I don't think that that's how you get on preferred lists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is by asking. It should be by proving that you deserve a spot on that list like everyone else has. But reaching out to them, I mean, this is the South, y'all, right? So sending a handwritten note with some business cards in it, dropping by, you know, when we couldn't do these big in-person events, dropping by. And here's something, I do a mastermind for wedding planners a couple times a year. And something that I always tell them is it's not about your business and it's not about theirs. It's about the personal connection you make, even if that's one person at a time. It's about learning about their family, where they're from, right? Before we went live, we talked about the connection we had to Texas and North Austin and all of that. And that's how you remember people. And so when I moved here, it was about just learning who these people were. I didn't even really care what their pricing was for video or photo or what their company name was. I just wanted to know who the people are that are in this industry with me.
I think that's awesome.
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, because I think that the business brain always immediately tells you to go for the ask, you know, how can I get on your vendor list? How can, you know, all the different questions you were talking about, the answers to all of those, when in all reality, we just have to take time to be a little bit more personal. And you know, there's going to be somebody out there listening or somebody out there that's going to disagree and say, hey, I'm all about business. And that's okay. I just don't know that there's really sustainability in that, because let's be honest, like, we work in the relationship industry. Right? Like our whole industry is based on relationships.
Yeah. I would say that almost every business, is built on relationships. Yeah. Regardless of the industry, I think business is relationships with people. And if you can master that and create actual intimate, meaningful relationships with people, you'll be doing well for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. The key is they just need to remember you. You don't need to know how much my wedding planning packages cost. You don't need to know how many weddings I do a year. All you need to know is my name, and then you're going to always remember me as the girl from Austin, or, you know, whatever I'm remembering you by. That I'll always remember that you guys love baseball. Well, 2 of you out of the 3 love baseball. So, like, those things, you know, I remember David always, when his name pops up on Clubhouse, I always think of his Instagram posts and how he's got all these cool graphics going on. I mean, he's building a story even through social media. And David, we've never even talked face to face, but I was totally comfortable doing this because I feel like you've built that story with your voice on Clubhouse and Instagram. And I really don't even know, you know, what you do in terms of being a DJ. It just matters that I know who you are. And that's hugely powerful.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. We do have a question. I think this is from Kevin saying, how do you get other vendors to realize it's okay to have relationships with more than one DJ or cake person or florist, etc.? Yeah, I think a lot of people do struggle with this. This is a great question. So curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, how many times do we hear rising tide lifts all boats, right? But the reality is, and I hate to keep going back to the good vibes and the energy you put out, but I mean, in my world, there's barely a thing such as competition with other wedding planners. Like, people, again, are buying us for us and our personality and what we bring. And nobody can do what I do. They can offer the same package, but they can't bring what I bring. And when you explain it to people that way, you know, there's somebody for everybody in the world. And in terms of love, it's the same thing in the wedding industry. You know, there's a perfect match vendor for everybody. And it's important that, you know, if I'm not the right match, to me, it's important that somebody I know and love in this industry is going to get the contract instead of me. And so it's important that I have all those people. And that kind of ties into the networking piece as well. You know, one really helpful thing you can do when you're not going to these mixers is feature other vendors. There's no harm in featuring other vendors and lifting them up with positive Instagram posts, resharing their posts, writing a blog post about your top 10 favorite DJs, favorite venues. That was when I moved here. One of the first things I did was toured like 6 venues right off the bat. And then I went home and I took my cell phone pictures, wrote a blog post and said, if you're getting married here, these are your top venues.
Nice. Some good advice.
I love it. Yeah. Just kind of like working through what you just said. I think it's really like, again, I know we talk about the energy a lot and stuff like that, but it's really important. Like I didn't realize how important it was until I really got connected with the local, folks in our industry. And it's like, it's such a community, and it's such a family of people. And like, I just don't, I think the wedding industry is really unique. Like, competitors aren't really competitors. Like we all, like, I know on the video side of things, like, we all help each other. Like we're all like, hey, can you second shoot, or can you do this, or hey, can I help with that? And dude, we're all willing to help each other, and it's really, really fantastic. So I really think that like, just your energy that you put out is so important, and not to get, like, it's easy to be like, oh, like, I'm not being taken care of or whatever, like this and that. But to understand that we all are a one community of people who are doing something, like we talked about earlier, who love what we're doing. I think that's it for sure.
That's something we should all strive for, is that level of commitment to not only your own business, but the industry and the people that are your colleagues in the industry. And we should all strive to have that. I mean, Frank will probably agree with me that the DJ world struggles with that maybe more than anybody does. And it's something I believe in. It's something I try to, I try to be good at myself, but all full transparency, I haven't always been, sometimes in the past, as equally willing to be as active in that. And probably more so because of what we talked about earlier, is when people are doing things underhanded and when people are doing things with ill intentions, it forces you to, it's kind of forces you to put a guard up and a wall up and all of that stuff. And if those ill intentions and those things are not there, then if people could see beyond those and realize that the big picture is that everybody can win together. It doesn't have to be just one company or one person winning, we can all win together.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a multi-billion-dollar industry. There's certainly enough money to go around, and just as many people that are coming in are going out, or businesses are going out of business. And it's kind of, back to that question that was just asked, if somebody came to me and was like, I want to be your go-to cake person, and I want you to recommend me and take everyone else off your Rolodex of recommendations, they would be the first person to go, because to me that says they're not actually a professional in this industry, because if they were, they would realize their limitations, and they're not for everyone. And as a planner, that's tricky, because I'm making all the recommendations. So when you have friends and they see on your Instagram that you booked a wedding that's in People magazine and you didn't ask them to be the florist, that's tricky. But sometimes rejection is protection. And sometimes as a planner, I'm like, this isn't a good fit for you, and I don't want to put you through that. You aren't a good match for this client, but let me bring you someone better later. So that's really important.
So let me ask you a question, because you had mentioned it earlier about networking. You talked about how people are really comfortable in those like mixer settings, right? Like everyone's in a room and everyone's talking, and drinks or holiday parties or what, just with vendors, right? And then you said you had mentioned that COVID, if one of the good things that you felt like came out of the COVID pandemic was that you started to network in different ways with professionals, especially with your transition from being in the market that you were in previously to the new market. So outside of doing like site visits, right, which you had mentioned, what were some other ways that you networked with other professionals in your area in your new area that allowed you to start building up that network?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I think not just my immediate area, one thing that comes to mind right away, right, is Clubhouse. Like that was something that popped up where we started getting closely connected with people all over the country, which was incredible. But also in my area, I was able to join networking groups that had gone more virtual, right? So we have these pods of Facebook groups where it's like, where people maybe weren't posting as much before, like they were just lurking and watching, they were now a lot more active. And then people got more comfortable being active in those groups and responding to questions and posting questions. And so it's like, we had this pop up of like, oh, now I recognize who you are. And maybe when I do pop into an in-person networking event, I do recognize you. And I think that's one thing about Facebook, even though like younger generation considers it like for old people, the benefit to Facebook is that we do have these Facebook groups that are invaluable, in my opinion, to networking with people and being able to go back and forth. You can't do that on any other platform right now. So that was another, the local, I joined everyone in the radius of my house. I met other planners. So I sought out people who were doing exactly what I wanted to do here. and I took them out for coffee, which is kind of like cliche and not always my favorite to get coffee invitations, but I was just really candid with them. And I mean, I'm a pretty open book. Like, I'll tell you exactly what I charge and what I'm doing and what my goal is here. And some of them liked it, and some of them were like, yeah, I'm not telling you anything. And I was like, okay, noted. So, you know, it was a great thing, because the ones that did like what I had to say have sent me clients now, you know, when they're booked. So.
Well, and there's power in what you just said, because understanding that not everybody is going to necessarily be, you know, I love your phrase earlier, rejection is protection. And that probably applied to that same scenario, because those people who kind of turned a, you know, a deaf ear or whatever to your conversation, it was probably the universe's way of saying you probably don't want the referrals anyways. And I think it's important for us to understand that, and it's important to not take it personal and realize just because you know, just because somebody tells you no, like I've said this a lot in Clubhouse, just because somebody tells you no, if you can use no as an acronym for next opportunity, it becomes a positive instead of a negative. And I think it's so vital that we continue to train our brains to think that way. No simply means next opportunity. It doesn't even necessarily mean never, because some of those people may come around eventually. They might, after you've proven yourself in the marketplace, and after they've seen you a little while, they might be like, hey, you know what, maybe I misinterpreted her, you know, and maybe my initial, you know, feelings or whatever about the situation probably shouldn't have been that way. So you just never really know.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things about it is it's almost, you know, it's like flipping that no. It's the same idea. Like, we view the people who are doing what we're doing as our greatest competition by habit. But the reality is the people who are doing what you're doing in this industry are your greatest allies. You know, the best thing I ever did for my business, and I will go to the grave saying this, is join a group of just wedding planners. We have a private Facebook group. We have all these things that are, it's just us. There's nobody else in there. Those core group of women have been really, you know, what I've rode in on this last, you know, 7 years in growing my business, because they've done everything they can to help me. Just like they'll answer my questions when I can't find the right venue or the right florist, or I don't have an assistant because they called off sick. I mean, those people have helped me probably more than anyone else. And I think a lot of people miss that opportunity by kind of pushing away from the people they view as their competition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can absolutely attest to that in the video space for sure. Just by working together, you know, we all help each other. It's crazy. Like, you know, we're sharing ideas and editing styles and how these techniques, and I like to use this and I like to use that. And it's been like that to me is invaluable. And when I can share something with someone else that I knew that they didn't know, and it clicks, and you see it click for them, and you're like, it's so cool. And same thing for me. I've known, you know, tons of videographers that have helped me, like, oh, like do this way. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And it's like, it's awesome. Yeah. It's super cool to spread the knowledge and love like that.
Well, and it prevents the industry from, you know, we've all heard the term racing to the bottom, and that's usually this negative animosity and these negative ways of handling competition. That is the result of that is the race to the bottom. Whereas this type of activity that you're talking about and that we're kind of addressing here, it just elevates everybody. And when everybody's elevated, everybody wins. And I know sometimes it's hard to put your faith and trust in that, but it's real, it's true. And we should all really just continue to work hard to push that. We do have a question again here. Welvin sent me some other questions too, by the way, that I want to get to before we get done tonight, unless he asked them in here. But so question, when you walked into the new venues, how did you start the conversation?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think it's actually, you have to just not overthink it as much, right? These are just humans who have they're getting paid by the hour or a salary to be there and do their job. Like, they're not judging you any more than you judge anybody else who's doing their job, right? It's like, you don't walk into Target and judge someone because they work there. You're just like, here's my stuff, ring it up. Like, and I go off my day and don't think about it, right? So it's the same with these venue managers, right? They're just doing their job. And so when I go into a venue, one, I email them and I obviously introduce myself, set up a time to be there. And I just say, like, I'd love to see the space. I've heard great things. Short and sweet. I don't need to give them a whole book about my history and who I am and qualify myself. Anyone can go get a tour. I just want them to know that I'd like to see it. When I get there, I just ask them for a tour, like, give me the tour you give clients, show me around. Like I think the more chill and relaxed you make it, the more approachable and human you become.
No, for sure.
You know, from the wedding planner side, if I walk in with my clipboard and my high heels and I'm like, okay, well, show me your restrooms and how many stalls. And I don't care about that. Like, there's restroom trailers. I can rent those. Like, we can solve all those problems. I just really want them. And I'm listening to the tour when they're like, this patio is 20 by 80 or whatever. But really, I'm more asking, like, how long have you worked here? Oh, are you from here? Do you, you know, like, oh, are you married? What do you do? If you're not working, like, what do you do for fun? I'm new here. Where should I go to dinner? I mean, all of those things are way more important than how many stalls are in the bathroom. And naturally, they'll let their guard down, and then you become one of their favorite people. Yep. I just asked them just a quick, like, hey, I'm new here. Love to meet you. Can I swing by sometime? Usually I'll take them something. Sometimes I take a little, like, it's not just a business card, like, do something for me and send me business. Like, I'll offer to grab them a Starbucks on the way there or whatever, you know.
I love that. And you know, this will tie in with some of the other questions that Welvin had mentioned in the Facebook group earlier, which gives me a great opportunity to plug our Facebook group.
Join the Facebook group.
If you're not a member of the Wedding Business Growth Facebook group, we invite you to join the group. We'd love to have you, and all of our past episodes are there, and most of our guests are kind enough to participate there as well. So if you ever have like a question for one of our guests from the past, you can always post those in there. And normally they see those, or we'll get to them and ask them for you. So some of the other questions that Welvin asked earlier, which ties right in with what we're talking about, was how often do you check in with them after this initial connection?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you don't want to be that annoying person that looks like you're just hurting for business, right? So I'm not really ever checking in with them again. So luckily where I live, there's a lot of resorts. So I have a reason to be at some of these places when I wouldn't normally be. So of course, if I'm there, I'm like, hey, I stopped by today. Like, you weren't there, drop something off on your desk. But I don't really make a point to keep emailing them, because if I'm being honest, when I get an email from a vendor as a planner that says like, hey, recommend me. And then I'm like, okay, thanks for sending this over. I'll share it with our clients. And then if I don't recommend them right away, it could just be that I legitimately don't have someone looking for a violin player right now. And I may not for 6 months. And if I keep getting check-ins, I kind of get to the point, it's like, okay, why are you need me so bad? Like, does that make sense? Like it starts feeling like a little
desperation.
Yeah. I was trying to say it nicely, but it starts feeling desperate. And so
let the gloves off here. That's what we're all about. We're all about helping people no matter how it has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to feel desperate, right? I mean, I tell the girls that work for me all the time, if you have planned one wedding, you've planned more than your clients, right? You're already more knowledgeable. You're ahead of them. Doesn't matter. If you plan 2, you're leaps and bounds ahead of them. But you just got to remember that every time you talk to them. And you got to bring that same confidence to, like, yeah, this is a great venue tour. It's great to meet you. Hey, hopefully our paths cross soon. Done. If you did a good enough job of building the personal connection, you really don't have to follow up. They're going to remember you. They're going to send you clients because they feel like there's good fits for you.
Well, and then those other, you know, then you can utilize those other networking functions and networking opportunities, whether it's a Facebook group or, you know, do a little research, like do a little homework. It's okay to do that. And find out, you know, just like you've all heard everybody, or at least I think everybody's heard this whole, like, what is your perfect avatar? Where do they hang out? Where do they shop? What do they eat? Blah, 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 blah. Right. Well, why not do the same thing with people that you want to work with? And, you know, find out those things about them. And then if you know that they go to this networking meeting every first Tuesday of the month, if it's a networking meeting that you can also go to, go there. Just show up, be seen, right? Yeah. And it's another opportunity to make a contact, but it's not like a deliberate, like, I'm sending you an email to remind you I still exist kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, I mean, I always do the handwritten note too, because I like to tell people your handwriting is so personal. And it's like a business card is just printed and it doesn't have my face. Mine doesn't have my face on it. It has one of my clients' faces. But when they see my handwriting and they get, you know, a gift card for one Starbucks or something like that, it just feels more personal. And that's important.
Yeah, it absolutely is way more personal. And another thing that I've found in the video and video space, but for photographers as well, is like, what can I do? Let me show you what I can do for you before you would ever even think about referring me business. Putting promotional content together. Hey, let me come out and shoot some promo for you. Let me go shoot this for you. I'd love to show you the quality of my work. I'd love to show you, what I'm capable of doing. And hey, how can I can bring this to your clients as well. And I can, and do it that way as well. And I've gotten really good, just overall feedback from that as well. And usually the people that I'm working with are blown away by the footage, and they say, wow, like, this is incredible. I'd love to, talk to you more. So,
yeah. And I mean, if you're a DJ and you're thinking, well, I don't have a video or a photo, what could I do? Put together a playlist. Use Spotify. Put together a dope ass, like, just chill playlist, and be like, hey, you may or may not like this. I'd love to get your feedback on it. But here's just kind of a Spotify playlist of some dope tracks. Some of them you may have heard of. Some of them you may have not heard of. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. And then maybe you make like a chill one. Maybe you make a more, hey, if you're having a bad day and you want to bang your head up against the desk, here's one that's a little bit more aggressive for you, kind of a deal, right? Yeah. But those are just kind of fun little things that that you can do and you can utilize. And if you're a cake bake, well, you already know what you can do if you're a cake baker. I don't have to tell you.
Well, and I don't have to tell you. That's actually a genius idea that you guys just kind of spitballed there. But the flower guy, Braun, if you're familiar with Braun Hansborough, he's great at networking. And that's one of the things that's part of his talk is, he just recently on Instagram, he posted like free flowers, and he just put buckets of flowers in front of his shop. I was like, anybody can have these flowers, hundreds of dollars. He just had an overage and he just gave it to the community. And it's like those things. And for you guys, there's a venue that I love in Nashville. Most venues have music playing. If you created a playlist and gave it to a venue, was like, hey, let this play out all day long, give them hours or whatever of music that they can just hit play on, and they can do tours to that all day. There's a venue in Nashville we love to work at that they have videos playing all day, wedding videos. And it's like, man, if you just drop them an email, we're like, hey, here's like 5 videos, just let them play on your TVs in the venue. I mean, they love stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool.
For sure.
Frank, what say ye, brother?
Well, I mean, first of all, I love the playlist idea.
Yeah.
That was genius.
I
had a venue that was just a wedding venue at first, and then they recently opened a brewery in the last few years, and they had reached out to me and asked me to make them a couple of playlists that I could share with them on Spotify, that they could just, do the same thing like what you all are talking about. I made like a daytime, I made an evening, I made a weekend. Like, they had different vibes they were going for in each of those time frames, and I just shared it with them. But I never thought about like sharing it with other, with like other wedding professionals, just to say, hey, like, here's an idea of kind of how I would put music together for these certain moods. If you like it, listen to it, remember me, kind of thing. I mean, I know you don't say that, but you know what I mean? That's basically what you're doing.
Yeah. And every vendor or every wedding professional could get creative, right? Like, cake companies, you send a beautiful tasting box. The people who are working at that venue are going to Instagram that over and over and tag you and reshare. And then it's like, if you do photo, you can do some beautiful albums that feature all the weddings you've done at that particular venue if you've worked there. If not, just a collection of weddings you've done that kind of fit the vibe of that venue that maybe don't feature the actual buildings of other venues. And then they'll feature your work, and brides will look at that because they want flower inspiration or whatever. So you just kind of have to get creative with what you can bring to the table. You can offer them.
Or, hey, I'd love to do a walkthrough of your venue with you. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And,
so I think it's so important for everybody listening to or watching to understand these are all forms of networking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to understand that. Adriel, you made such a good point earlier about remembering that networking goes beyond just a gathering of people in a room with some drinks for an hour talking about business stuff. Like, networking goes way beyond that. And everything that we're talking about are all great forms and ways to network with people that you would like to hopefully eventually work with, or people that you're already working with that you want to continue to foster and nurture that relationship with them. Welvin said, what message do you write in the handwritten card? I'm guessing it's probably kind of like, it probably depends from person to person, I would say, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. People's lives are busy, right? Like I don't want to use up, I have 2 10-year-olds at home. Like I don't have time for anything. So it's like when I'm sending a card, it needs to be like they rip it open, they read it, and they're going to throw it in the trash. Fine. So I buy like a 12 pack of thank you cards from, the grocery store. And all it literally says is, thanks so much for showing me around. It was so great meeting you. Have a coffee on me. And if I don't have a Starbucks gift card, it's just a thank you. I mean, I think that's kind of a lost old school art, but it does go a long way. I mean, I remember the clients actually save the handwritten thank you cards I get from clients just because it just goes the extra mile. Like it's quicker than a text, and that's important these days. And so it's maybe 3 lines that they can open as they're walking back to their desk and be like, cool, Starbucks, throw the card away and go on.
I love that. And I would also, I share that sentiment. I save the cards as well. Yeah. When I get a thank you card from a vendor or something like that, I'm just like, oh, this is so sweet. And but
it's different.
You're a couple too.
Your soft side. I love that.
I love it. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about doing free stuff for venues, i.e. a DJ does a free networking event?
Yeah, that's kind of what we were just talking about, like on the video side of things, or DJ. Yeah, if you have the ability to offer that, I would just say, little Nikki tearing it out. I'm fired up tonight, y'all.
Tearing up.
Oh, tearing up
with your sweet nothings from your clients and
I'm
vendors.
tearing up and tearing up at the same time.
You're killing it, man. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we were talking about, though. Yeah. If you have the ability to, offer free work, and don't do everything for free. I mean, it should be very calculated.
Yes.
But if you have the opportunity to, build a relationship with someone, and they don't know you from Adam, and yes, please, like I would say, do it. Like I wouldn't be in business right now if I didn't prove myself, started with, David, and then to other people as well. So,
and the only other disclaimer I think I would put on it is make sure that you establish going into it, like free usually means that there's no money being exchanged, but it doesn't mean that there can't be publicity, marketing, promotion. Those types of things can exist. And it's vital that you make sure that especially if no money is being exchanged, it's vital that you make sure that you're a part of those things. And you can't just assume because you're told that those things are going to happen, that they're going to happen. You gotta check on it. You got to make sure it's happening. And you have to be aware of it. It's kind of like, it's almost kind of, to me, it's kind of almost like, the slot machine. You put money in the slot machine knowing that you're probably not going to get anything back out of it. But there's always that chance that you put the right quarter or whatever, the right money in the right machine, and you hit jackpot, and all of a sudden you get that payday. And that payday in this scenario would be creating a new relationship with somebody who now refers you a lot of business. And that goes back to that lifetime value of a client, which I hope one day we can do a show just on that, because I love talking about that. I love talking about the lifetime value of not just a client, but just a relationship in general.
Relationships. For sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, we, in the beginning, we were talking about having fun and, the fun side of business and keeping the energy high, but you also have to remember that you are a business person and you have to be strategic. You cannot just float through this and be like, inquiries just coming in whenever. And that sounds great. I'll do this and that. Like, you really have to also be strategic and get down to the, logistical side of things. And if somebody, I do networking events all the time where I plan them, and it's my job to actually go out to people like y'all and ask you to do it for free. So I'm on the other end of that all the time. Rarely does someone ask a wedding planner to do something, right? Because our job is a little different, but I'm out asking DJs and florists and people like that for free stuff all the time. And it amazes me how many don't ask the right questions and are just like, they either straight up say no, or they'll right away say yes. And then they don't ask things like, how are you going to promote this? Who's going to be in attendance? Like, what is it costing these people to come? A $5 ticket is a different crowd of vendors than a $50 ticket in most cases. You'll have some overlap, right? But if you need to know who's going to be in that room, because if those aren't your people, if it's a $5 or a free event and those people maybe aren't working in the arena you want to be in, it might not be worth your time to do it for free. Of course, there are situations where there is that lottery winner, there's someone in there in that free crowd that is your golden ticket for a while. But in most cases, you need to know who's going to be in the room, who's promoting it, what that promotion looks like. I mean, when we make deals with publications like magazines and stuff, we have to know how many times are you going to say our name in this article? What are you going to say? When is it going live? And how many times will you be promoting it before we ever agree to discount anything in the name of publicity?
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about like doing something for free, you just have to be very aware that your ROI might not, your return on your investment, which your investment would be your time for a free event, may not be exactly what you want it to be. But it also could be way more than you ever imagined it could be, right?
And
so you really just have to be aware.
And it also may not come right away. That's the other super important thing to remember is that return on investment might not come right away. When you think about when you talk about investments, how many investments really, produce any kind of real value in a short period of time anyways.
Yeah.
So if you just think about it mentally from that standpoint and understand, I'm planting this seed, and in past shows I've talked about my whole analogy of a farmer, and I'm planting these seeds realizing that I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and the crop is going to be grown. Right. But I do know that if I plant the seeds and I water the seeds and I nurture the seeds and I make sure they get all the light, nutrition, and everything they need, something beautiful is going to come out of that. And it's the same situation here.
That's right. Yeah. And in our industry, right, people don't book you today for tomorrow. It's not how it works. So if you're right on the tail end of a booking season for next year, your return on investment may not come for a whole year until you reach next year's booking season. You might get a couple trickle in here and there, but you won't really feel the impact of that free relation or that moment where you provided that free service for a while. So you kind of have to, you have to be patient with seeing how it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. In our company, we use a vendor first approach. That's what I train all my planners on. So vendors are our top priority, second, and then clients are second, because happy vendors make happy clients. And I've yet to have a client bring me a business changing referral, but I've had plenty of vendors bring me business changing referrals over the years. And that's really important to me. If I can foster that, what's that?
That's a mic drop right there. We could just stop the show right there. Like, I want to just clip that last 2 minutes of what you just said and share it with the whole world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, down to a wedding day. I mean, to me, priority is I'm in the kitchen. Like, are you guys okay? What can I do? Do you need water? Has everyone eaten? DJ, do you have water? Have you had your dinner? Do you want me to plate it and bring it to you? Because a DJ smiling, a server going out to clear tables who's smiling and happy and feels respected, that spreads like wildfire. And it's like, they leave there feeling like, man, that planner took care of me. Like, she had granola bars for us. She had water. She was making sure I was fed when no one else was. And that goes out into the world and builds a strong business. Clients, they get married and it's hard to get a review from them. So,
right. Yeah. I love what you said. And one of our great mentors that we Dave and I both follow, Gary V, actually just put out something very similar where he said, your employees don't work for you, you work for your employees. I think we could almost make that same kind of analogy, to kind of similar to what you just said. Like, your vendors don't work for you, you work for, who you're referring, right?
Yep.
And I think, just to your point, I think it's that mindset is amazing, and I've seen it in action, and there's no better feeling for sure. So
I love that.
Thank you.
Adriel, we are at a little over an hour right now. We got a couple more things. Are you okay to stick around with us for a little while longer?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, just out of respect, want to make sure that you do. Okay, before we get to our questions, we have another question from the viewer. How do you find networking events with higher clientele?
So I'm assuming that means like higher end vendors, right? Because okay. So it's just asking the right questions, right? You got to just do some digging and get out there and find the people. And the thing is, nobody is ever thinking about you as much as you think they are, right? So you just got to get out of your own way. You've got to drop the imposter syndrome, all the things we hear all the time, right? Like, I'm not worthy. Who am I to reach out? I mean, some of the most high-end wedding planners that I know, that they're not doing a wedding unless it's like published in magazines on every stand. They're the most down-to-earth great people I've ever met. And so it's like, you just got to get out there and start talking to these vendors and reaching out to these high-end vendors. Sure, some of them are going to ignore you, but start figuring out where they're hanging out, right? Watch their Instagram. They'll story about it. They'll tell you where they're going to network, or if they're going to engage, or where they're, you know, wherever they're going. That's where you need to follow them to and be a part of that. And, you know, most of the time, those big conferences like Cater Source and stuff, you'll pull some of those higher end people, but they're in every market. You just got to reach out to them.
And I think it's important to understand what that level of event requires of you, because everybody, I don't like to necessarily use the term everybody. A lot of people aspire to be at that level until they get to that level and they realize, I don't know. I think I was doing a little bit better down here because I wasn't making as much money, but I wasn't sure as hell pulling my hair out by the roots.
Well, and the wedding industry is a weird thing because for some reason, somewhere along the way, we decided that you've made it in this industry if you do luxury, whatever that means, right? Everyone, luxury is like up to interpretation. So it's like people assume you've only made it if you're doing luxury. But to me, that's not the mark of a good business, because not everybody belongs in that pocket. Exactly. Some people belong in that mid-range and they will thrive there and build crazy successful companies beyond what they ever imagined in that pocket. So, and you're right. I mean, we've gone up. I very candidly say when people start coming to me with more than $150,000 weddings, I'm not really interested because it spreads me too thin.
That's powerful to be able to admit that and understand that. That's okay. You can let the dog bark. We don't mind. We don't mind the dog barking.
And look, I think the other thing too that people tend to forget is that, right. I mean, I know there's a clear line, like when a wedding becomes a luxury wedding. I mean, I understand what that is, and you know, done only a couple, and like you said, I don't know that that's like my wheelhouse necessarily, but it doesn't mean that you go into. It doesn't mean that those people who are servicing what is defined as a non-luxury wedding is going in with the mindset of not trying to deliver a product that is equivalent to a luxury wedding experience, right? So maybe I don't charge luxury prices, but that doesn't mean that I'm not coming in providing a luxury experience, you know? And I think that's something that people tend to forget too. You shouldn't just say, oh, since they charge twice as much as me, I'm not going to do quite as much because people are paying. No, I'm going to do just as much as that person over there that's charging twice as much as me is doing, because I am comfortable in this space, whatever that is. And people who are comfortable in that space can do their thing, and people who are comfortable in this space can do their thing, you know? So, but the goal should still be providing the best experience for your clients and customers that you possibly can, regardless of whatever you feel is comfortable for you as price wise.
I agree.
100%.
So let's talk a little bit about efficiency, because I think efficiency is something that we all can benefit from, can get better at. Even if you're efficient, you could probably still be 1% more efficient than you already are. I don't know, however you say that.
The efficient.
The efficient.
10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. What are some thoughts and tips on that? Because I know that's something that we talked about, email exchange as well on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, Frank said at the beginning, you know, having those automated emails, and that doesn't work for everybody. So it's just like the networking thing. Like, you got to figure out what's going to work for your business. For DJs, I see those automated systems work so well because you need song selections. You need all these things. And it's like, that's a dream for me when I get those automated emails. I'm like, you got it. Like, I can plug songs in and keep going and roll on with my day. So I think that's super important. And just finding these systems, like for us in our company, we have 70 weddings going at once. We have 11 people on the team. And so it's like, finding things like start a subject line for us of like, this is the subject, like, or for you guys for this client, and everything for that client stays in that chain. And then it's like, I can refer back. I'm not digging for days through inboxes, trying to find old emails. I mean, and as the owner side of things, I love things that organize, because when things go wrong, I can quickly reference. I'm not spending days playing detective. But when you have a very clean inbox and you're labeling by subject, you can color code. I mean, Angela Profit, right? She's the queen of efficiency. She's got a million tips on this. But when you have that system and you're not just out there throwing emails out and starting a new email every time because you're too lazy to go back and look, it starts adding up and you're bogged down for hours before you know it.
For sure. Yeah.
What things have you learned that has helped you be more efficient being new in business? I think that's kind of like a fresh thing that's probably would be interesting.
Yeah. For me, it was all my workflows, like we were talking about with emails. Just not necessarily automated, because I think from the video side of things, it's very intimate what you're doing. So I always like to make sure that the email is a little bit customized, but I have a general timeline as to when certain emails are going out. Like, hey, we need to make sure that, you know, we pick out your music. We need to make sure that, you know, we have the shots that you want to get, what's important to you. You know, are you going to do your vow readings, that kind of stuff. So I always have like a template of emails, you know, before the wedding that I'm hitting. And then another one that was really huge was the editing workflow. Were really, really important on the back end of things for video stuff, because it gets messy, because you've got audio that was recorded outside of the camera, and then you've got almost half a terabyte of video footage that needs to get organized, and you're doing multiple weddings in a weekend, and you got to keep everything organized. So that workflow has been super helpful for me. But also, I think in terms of client management, definitely the email side of things for sure has been number one.
Well, and here's the thing. You got to embrace technology. I mean, at this point, you have to, every time that I say, like, I'm just going to suck it up and spend money on this system or this piece of technology, right? Like, you don't need every single one. That's overwhelming. But when you find the ones that work really well for you and you shell out the money comes back tenfold. It always does, because you have more time, you're more available to do other things. You're better at networking and posting on social media, because you're not digging through contracts that are in Word documents and that sort of stuff. So it's like finding the technology and embracing it and being willing to just, whatever that monthly thing is, if you can swing it and it will help your business and enrich you and free up some time, it's always worth it.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. The big one that I swung for was Monday.com, and it's kind of expensive per month. But in what it's done for the workflow in terms of the editing side of things for video, where I can have people collaborating. Hey, where are you at on this? Do you need help? You know, how are we looking? You know, what's the projected date you're going to have this done? You know, we got to get this back in this amount of time. That kind of stuff, like to your point, is already, you know, paid for itself for sure.
Yeah. It's very like cool. Your life, right? Like, you don't try to spend. My parents, I mean, obviously I'm way out of my parents' house now, but they still get annoyed when I'll like try to fix something in my own house. They're like, you own a company, hire somebody to fix it, because your time is more valuable than painting a room or trying to fix a door or something like that. Like, if it's something that's going to take my time, and if we offload like plumbing jobs and electrical jobs and things like that, because they're not something we could do, we also have to admit we can't do everything in our business. You know, you cannot be a social media genius, an attorney. You know, we have to be in the beginning out of necessity, but as soon as you can offload that stuff and free yourself up to get in your zone of genius, the better it is for your company.
Yeah, I talk about this way too often on the show. I probably brought it up. We could probably make like a little montage of me bringing this up every time. But the one thing, like similar to your point on that, for me was just editing and having editors, like where you free up your time and you find your genius. Like my time, like I have videos, I have a style. I show the editor what I'm looking for. They do it for me, and then I revise, make sure it looks good, and it's been. And that was it for me for sure. Where I'm able to free myself up and be more creative in the business and stuff like that. So
well, and actually also have a life. I mean,
it's
how often do we forget to address just that part of it? Right. Sometimes you totally forget that you need to have a life and you need to do something. And I am the biggest deal breaker or rule breaker when it comes to that. If there were 26 hours in the day, sometimes I'd probably spend all 26 of them working some days. And I have to remind myself that you have to appreciate life. You have to appreciate the things that you've worked so hard to achieve, and the different things that you've been able to accomplish in life. What good is those accomplishments and achievements and money in the bank and all of those other things if you don't ever take time to enjoy them?
For sure.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're working constantly, it really suffocates you. You know, like we have a joke in our house that I come up with my best, most genius, brilliant business ideas on the beaches of Mexico. It is no lie that every time I go to Mexico and I let go of my business for a few days, I come back and I'm like, I have like groundbreaking ideas. And I think it's just because I have to be away long enough to step back and have a good view because I'm so deep in it at home.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same way. I mean, I'll work sun up to sundown every day. I mean, I don't think I've cooked a meal for my family and I don't even know how long.
Yeah. And to your point about that, you know, you get your best ideas in on the beaches of Mexico. I mean, Warren Buffett, you know, is the biggest advocate for that, right? He's like, I get my best ideas when I'm playing golf.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as soon as you can remove yourself to be creative and you're not doing the legwork, the grunt work, you're going to free yourself up for really, really good creative ideas for sure. So that's awesome that you found that.
I love that. All right, let's wrap up the conversation and talk a little bit about Plan Well, this amazing product that you've put together, and tell us a little bit about what it is and how it can benefit our listeners and just anybody who is in the industry.
Yeah, this is one of my beaches in Mexico ideas. So here it is in real life. So one of the things obviously that we were talking about was email. And, you know, for me and in my bio, like you were saying in the very beginning, you know, I know that when I leave a wedding day that I've left something for that family. You know, I've been a part of creating something really amazing for them. But to me, I got to this point where I was like, but then what? You know, what about the people who are working so hard around me? What about these people who are pouring their souls into these businesses? You know, how do I leave them in a better situation? And so back to that vendor first approach. And so I came up with Plan Well because I realized that a lot of times in this industry, especially with our email, we keep going back to that, but it's this like horse and cart situation. You know, if I want to recommend David, you to be the DJ, or, you know, Frank, to you, if I want to send 2 names out to my client, it's like, do I send you to my client and then you respond and say, sorry, we're booked. And now my client's waited 48 hours for you, right, to get back to me, 72 hours, whatever it is. Or do I reach out to each of you before I recommend you to my client? And then my client's like, oh, well, I don't even like Frank. Like I want, you know, and then it's like, well, now I've reached out to Frank and wasted his time for a client that wasn't interested. And so it's like, we're just spinning wheels at this point. And so I really highly value transparency. And so when I created Plan Well, it was like, what if we have a space for only vendors where we can just be completely transparent? Like, here's my availability calendar. Here's what I have open. Before you send me an email and use a few minutes of my day, multiple times checking for availability, go on here. I can go on Plan Well and search. If I need a DJ in Jacksonville on October 16th, 2021, I can search DJ Jacksonville, October 16th, hit enter. And every DJ who has that marked available on their calendar will come up in my search results. And that's twofold. Now I know you're available, so I can shoot you the job and be like, hey, I saw you're available, David. What do you think about this? I don't even really have to recommend other people to my clients if I know you're a good fit. I don't have to waste anyone else's time. The other piece is now I get in search results, and this to me is probably the more valuable piece. I'm getting search results for people I may not have thought of. Right? I can recommend the same few vendors over and over. And it's really hard to start thinking outside of that bubble. But when I see these search results and I'm like, oh my gosh, Frank, I forgot about Frank. I haven't worked with him in a year. For sure, sending this one to him. He's available. And so it's a place where we can see these availabilities and we can also see pricing. And we're cutting out a ton of emails in between. And that's it in a nutshell.
I think it's incredible. That's super cool. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of pieces, right? Like vendor to vendor reviews. If I trust Frank's opinion and Frank leaves 2 ends in plan.
I see. I did that again. I knew that I messed it up. Oops.
It's okay. If I trust Frank, because we've worked together many times, and I go look at a catering company and I see on there that Frank's left them a review that they crushed it at a wedding last summer and he loved the food, I already trust Frank. That's built-in trust. And so it's like, well, if they're good enough for him, they're good enough for me. And I feel good about referring my client to them. And so we're building this huge web of like, this is our safe space as vendors to just work better and smarter and closer.
I love it. That's such a good idea.
Just make sure those of you who asked what it was, I didn't put two N's. I told Adriel, it's so funny. I told her this before we got started. I made the graphics and everything for our show, and I put them out everywhere on social media today and yesterday. And then I realized, well, no, this was yesterday. Sorry. And then I realized I totally spelled her name wrong. I spelled it Adrirl. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So then I went back to all the graphics, fixed them, took them all down, reposted them again. Gotta love it. What do you do? So I did it again tonight. I did it again tonight. But this is correct. PLANNWELL.
Yep, that's right.
How many members approximately are on there right now?
Yeah, so it's in beta still. So a few hundred. We started out in Nashville only. And the reality is it was supposed to launch in March of last year, in true fashion, before we knew COVID was a thing. And I had this huge live event plan, and we were going to just like hit the ground running in Nashville and then, go out. It has the capability to go to it can go worldwide. I mean, it can cover anywhere. So once that was a bust, we just decided like, we'll just unleash it on Instagram and let it grow organically. So obviously we're going to Wedding MBA and have a booth there. So right now, as it's in beta, it's completely free. So, and it'll stay that way for a while. I really feel like I want this to be something that helps people more than I want to make money off of it. So
there you go.
Build the community, right? I mean, that's fantastic. And that's awesome of you to be doing that for the community. So
yeah. And how great for brand new business owners, think about when we started our businesses is like, how do I get my name out there? This is like, I'll just appear in search results for days I have available. I mean, that's like instant success. So.
Yeah.
I probably actually need to go look at my listing and make sure I have my availability dates on there.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's awesome.
Well, Adriel, thank you for joining us tonight.
You're
Absolutely a pleasure to have you on here. And I think, and see, Welvin even agrees. Yep. Yeah. No, this was a great conversation, wealth of knowledge. It's so great to see people that have what I like to call a servant heart. And I think that's one of the things that you're going to see as a commonality amongst the three of us, and typically a commonality in the guests that we hopefully seem to continue to attract to our show. Because as you mentioned earlier, and we talked about earlier, building a stronger community, building a stronger industry means that everybody wins. So we really want to thank you for being on with us tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. It was a great time.
Frank, what say ye, brother?
I got to go check out Plan Well. It sounds awesome. I mean, any way to be able to share vendors and lift each other up through that like vendor review method is really great, right? Because it just lets everybody know you're not going to review a fellow vendor if you haven't worked with them, right? So if they're leaning on you for whoever, hey Frank, what do you think about photographers? Not only would I be able to say, oh, I like, go here and go here, but then they're also going to be able to go and be validate, oh, here I see these reviews that Frank left about these weddings that he worked with this photographer or whatever vendor it might be. So it just kind of validates the whole relationship, as opposed to just, hey, is this guy just giving me his buddy who just broke into the industry, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of opens the door to like more validation behind the referral. So I love that.
Yeah. And one thing too with that is we vet every single by hand, one by one, every vendor. So we make sure that they're not, spammy or, they have to have proof of a business website, business email address, anything like that we can prove that they're legitimate, before we let other people refer them.
They even had me send in a blood sample. I don't know if everybody had to do that, but they even had me send in a blood sample.
Keep it on
file. It was
file.
just me. No, I thought it might have just been me. Any closing thoughts, Nick, before we wrap it up tonight?
It's been a fantastic conversation, honestly, and thank you so much for being on. Hopefully you can come on again. I mean, honestly, it was so much fun. They really just, I love having great conversation like this. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So in closing, I have some bad news and some good news.
Oh,
yeah.
What's going on?
So the bad news first. Should I do the bad news first?
I guess.
Well, it would only make sense.
Yeah.
So the bad news is we will not be on next Tuesday. We will not be on the air next Tuesday. But the good news is the following week we will be on the air Tuesday and Wednesday night.
Yes.
So you get you get a double header.
Double dose.
Let's go back to the
reference,
full
the
circle,
reference.
back to the baseball reference. You're going to get a double header, not next week, but the following week. Okay, so that's going to be the 27th and the 28th. So the 20th we will not be on the air, but the 27th and 28th we will. All right. So it's not terrible news. Just
Man, you got me scared for like half a second.
What did you think I was going to say?
I don't know, dude. I was like, did someone die?
No.
On the air? Are we doing this on the air?
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. So thank you all for tuning in. If you have not connected with Adriel yet, you're missing out. You definitely need to. You can connect with her on social media at Planwell, especially Instagram. It is Plan with 2 N's. Remember, Plan with 2 N's. That's right, Welvin. It is a trade-off. Yep,
Boom.
Exactly. And please connect with her. Please connect with us. And jump in the Facebook group and do us a favor. Actually, I'm going to ask one more favor before we get off here, and then I'm done, I promise. If you're watching right now, or if you have been watching, or if you listen to the audio replay, please jump in the Facebook group and throw some comments in there about tonight's episode with Adriel. I think it's important that we start encouraging this because we have a lot of people in the group, I'll be honest, and not everybody is always very active and not everybody is always as involved. And I think the value comes more so from the members than it comes from the three of us. Definitely. Because, we're going to continue to try to pump you with stuff because, let's be honest, it's our Facebook group. But when the members can comment about the shows that they watched and can offer some insight on the experience that they've had through this community of wedding business growth, the value exponentially rises. So we're going to ask you guys to do that, and we hope that you will do that. Just jump in the Facebook group and in a quick message, a quick line, anything at all about tonight's show or any other show that you felt like you've gotten something out of. So with that being said, I'm done. Frank, any last words?
No, other than we're going to start the thread. Let's do that tonight. One of us will leave a post in the group that just leaves a couple of comments about the show in our opinion, and then we can, we want you to chime in. So
Frank, I'm putting you in charge of that. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Frank, it is. All right, Adriel, stick around with us for just a second if you don't mind. Nick, close us out if you would, sir.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again for being on, and do something amazing this week. Have a great week. Keep the vibes high, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.